That is the President of the United States speaking in Israel today to a packed crowd. There were two Knesset members that started shouting, and security had to remove them and take them out. We think they were with the opposition party. He thanked so many different people, but I think something that shocked us all, and it seems like he ad-libbed this, he said it wasn't in the teleprompter, was he asked the president of Israel to please pardon Bibi.
Yeah, and the Knesset went bonkers in there. A wide-ranging speech. He talked about peace. He talked about the relationship between the United States and Israel. But he also talked about the Muslim world and the growth of the peace deals that really started with the Abraham Accord.
And of course, the first person he walks over to speak to is President Herzog after asking him to pardon Benjamin Netanyahu. President Trump talked about this peace deal as the miracle in the desert, and he talked about a future of peace, calling it hoping for the golden age of Israel and the golden age of the Middle East.
Yeah, he kept referring to his conversation with the prime minister where he said, Bibi, the world is big and it's time. And he said, I believe that the prime minister was ready for peace. Of course, he always said that Hamas started this fight. Let's bring in Benjamin Hall. What did you make up of this historic speech, Benjamin?
What a remarkable speech this was, Lawrence. You know, it was, first of all, a speech of celebration. This was President Trump taking credit, really, for in just 2 weeks since he first proposed the 20-point peace plan, for it coming into action. And he talked about seeing those hostages being released, which for 2 years has been the main goal of Israel. Get those hostages home. And if you see some of those images and videos that are just being released, that they're meeting their families, you will just see what a significant move and moment this is for that whole country. So yes, it was about peace. It was about how terrorism can never work. It was about moving on. And he said that time and time again. Hatred and terrorism will never work. Instead, we must build. And that was his next big message. It was a message to the region and a message to the world about how if you leave the horror behind, you can build something great. And he talked about the relationships that he's developed between the in the Abraham Accords and how it might possibly grow. And he talked about these wealthy nations coming to help Gaza and to rebuild Gaza. He said to them it's going to cost a huge amount of money to rebuild Gaza. They say it could be up to 50 billion, perhaps more. But he said that is so little for these wealthy countries when you bear in mind what could happen for the region. And he was also very set, and he's talked a few times about the importance of a strong military. You know, President Trump believes firmly that it is through a strong military that you can lead to peace. And he talked about striking Iranian nuclear facilities. He talked about the relationship with the military between the US and Israel. And he was very clear that if you commit these kind of terrorism acts, you will be crushed. But if you come to us with peace, we will have open arms for you. And he reached out to Iran. He said, we are waiting for you as well. You could be next. You know, he said, he knows a lot of Iranians back home, and this is their moment to come to the table. Though he did then tell Steve Witkoff that perhaps they should deal with Russia and Ukraine first before then moving on to deal with Iran. But for President Trump, this really was a sign that, look, this is one of the worst conflicts that we've seen. It has been brutal, and he brought all the sides to the table, and that very few other politicians can do that the way President Trump has done that. And I think he sees there are more opportunities in the future. So an incredible speech, a speech full of humor, a speech full of incredibly strong messages to countries who might not agree with him. But a sign that, look, you can get anything done. And, of course, he talked about the team around him that was able to do that. Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War now. And what a team can do. And he also talked about how he managed to bring Bibi to the table. He said, I sat down with Bibi and I told him this was the time. You have now got to do it. And, again, just reminds us of the influence that he has. But an incredible speech on an incredible day for Israel, and hopefully an incredible day for the Palestinians who can move on from Hamas and can build something for the future. And hopefully that's what we'll see when President Trump goes to Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt later today and can start building on the future for more peace.
Yeah, and he called out, notably, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that Marco Rubio was the greatest Secretary of State in history, but also nodded to the fact that they were once opponents. And as you surveyed all of those people that he mentioned, and gave credit to for this process. It really kind of comes together as a team of rivals that have come together, that President Trump has managed to bring together. I also thought it was interesting that a couple of times he name-checked both Presidents Obama and President Biden. And when he said that, spoke disparagingly of both of them, it garnered an applause in the Knesset.
You know, it's really interesting when you look back at what former presidents have done, is that they've led the move towards peace in the region with a sort of a moral finger waving. And President Trump does it very differently. He went into a region almost with a business mindset. And he's the first president to kind of do that in the way that Obama and former presidents have not done. And he went in there and he does it in the way that the region understands as well. Look, his first foreign visit was to Saudi Arabia, UAE. You know, he knows Qatar. He understands how they work. He understands how Israel works. And he went in there with a very practical point of view. Let's just rebuild. It doesn't matter if we've been at each other's throats in the past. And he said that to Iran as well. Look, they recently took out Iranian nuclear facilities. Doesn't mean we can't now start to build and build for peace. And so, that is why President Trump has been so different. It's why he's been able to get this done so quickly. 2 weeks since this 20-point peace plan came together. And it's because of the relationships he had, because he knows the shared values, really, for that region. It is the future. It's moving on from oil and gas. It's developing a future, AI-driven, he said. And all the countries want that. But to get to that, they've got to deal with Hamas first. And that's why Qatar, UAE, Saudi were all behind this, pushing Hamas as well. And they really seem to be on side when it looks to the future.
All right, Ben, thank you so much.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.